The story begins with a boy blushing as he stood, gripping his chest. Even when he thought about all the content of the game, he knew, even in real life, the girl in front of him was his favorite. She was Alexandra of Chevalier, the game heroine he loved the most. She stood there with a soft smile while looking at him with puppy eyes. The world they were in came from a game called Engage Hazard. It was a chat-based RPG filled with comedy, romance, and adventure. In the game, players could meet cute girls and unique heroines and try to make them fall in love. The goal was to become the next king by marrying the best fiancé in the world. However, the boy wasn't the main hero of the game. Instead, he had become Harold Well de Halvaz, the third prince of the de Halvaz kingdom, one of the most powerful countries in the western region. Harold was someone underhanded, despicable, and was easily controlled by people in power. The worst of the worst, nicknamed the incompetent villainous prince. The boy realized he had somehow become Harold when he woke up that morning. When he opened his eyes, memories of his previous life came back to him. It felt like something straight out of a reincarnation manga. In his past life, his name was Tachibana Haru. He was a quiet college student who didn't have many friends. Since he didn't fit in well with others, he often spent time playing games. That was how he found Engage Hazard, and even despite spending a lot of money on it, now, he was stuck living as Harold Well de Halvaz, the worst character in the game. In the original story, Harold became jealous of the original game's hero and started a rebellion. It failed though, and Harold was executed. The boy didn't want that to happen. He found out he was now only 13 years old, and the main story of the game wouldn't begin until he turned 16. That gave him 3 years. Since he already knew the game's whole story, he decided to change his fate. He promised himself he would survive and even save a girl who was supposed to die in the game. Afterward, Harold wore some clothes he thought looked silly. He asked the maids nearby what they thought, but they just smiled awkwardly and said it looked fine. He didn't believe them. He found his clothes lame. In his past life, he always wore black clothes, so he felt uneasy wearing flashy ones. So he ordered the maids to bring him a black outfit instead. When they did, he put it on and decided that this was what he would wear from now on. After that, he realized it was time to go to the meeting, so he rushed out. But before he could leave, a maid called him and handed him a handkerchief. He then recalled something related to it. In a short flashback, he found a girl crying inside a closet. He handed her a handkerchief and told her not to cry anymore. After seeing her smile, he thought he should have asked for her name. Someone then called out to him, and Harold rushed to the meeting. Soon after, he got to the meeting place. His father, the king, was glad to see him and said it was nice to have him there. But Harold only said sorry for being late. Then a girl stood up and greeted him. Harold started to remember something. In the game, Alexandra was the daughter of the Duke of Chevalier, the most powerful noble in the de Halvaz kingdom. He also remembered that she was one of the main girls in the game, but her skills were weak, even though she appeared early in the story. In the main story, people called her the Frozen Princess, because she was always cold and unkind to the other girls. Many players didn't like her, and she was always last in popularity polls. If the player didn't pick her romance path, she and her father would end up being punished for planning a rebellion. Even so, Harold liked her the most. If the player followed a certain route, there was one short line she said about the main character. She said she wished that person would notice her. It was a small moment, but it stayed in Harold's heart. Because of that, Harold decided not to be a villain in this world. Instead, he wanted to survive. For both of them. Alexandra looked confused because Harold was staring at her, so he quickly said sorry. His father laughed and said Harold must have been caught by her pretty face. Then, he invited both of them to a tea party. At the tea party, Harold saw that neither of them was talking. He realized he still needed to get closer to Alexandra, or things might not turn out well. He said her name, but she replied in a cold way. He admitted that he hadn't been a good prince and guessed that she didn't think well of him either. Then he told her that she could end their engagement if she wanted, since she probably didn't see him as someone worth marrying. Alexandra looked upset and asked what he meant. Harold raised his voice and said he just needed 3 years. In that time, he promised to become someone she could be proud of. His words surprised her. Then he got down on one knee and said that if after 3 years he still wasn't good enough, he would ask the king to cancel the engagement himself. He truly asked her to give him a chance. She stayed quiet for a moment. Then she said she understood, and that she would decide if his feelings were real. She called her maid Monica, who brought over a sword and a shield. Harold didn't understand what was going on. Alexandra told him she would attack with all her strength and all he had to do was block it. Harold thought it was too much. But when he said that, she gave him a serious look and told him that if he couldn't do it, then maybe he didn't mean what he said. In the end, Harold agreed and took the shield and sword. Alexandra blushed and thanked him. Harold tried to stay calm. He thought he only needed to block one hit and he believed he could do it. But when Alexandra moved, her attack came so fast that it surprised him. The hit was so strong that he coughed up blood and fell to the ground. She walked over and stood in front of him. He stayed on the ground feeling scared and confused. Then he noticed something strange. Her eyes were red. He remembered that this didn't happen in the original story he knew. Suddenly she told him that his determination had been noticed. This made Harold even more confused. Then she giggled and said she was excited to see how he would change over the next 3 years. Hearing that made Harold feel happy and he thanked her. She blushed, got into her carriage, and waved goodbye. After the carriage left, Harold also blushed. He thought this was the first step toward a better future. He promised himself to do his best during the next 3 years. Meanwhile, in the carriage, Alexandra's face turned bright red. She couldn't believe what she had just done. She had admitted that she had fallen in love with him from the moment they first met, and that they were now engaged. She thought it was worth it to secretly ask for the engagement. Her maid said she understood how happy Alexandra was because everything with the prince was going well, but she also reminded her to behave more like a proper lady. Even though the engagement went smoothly, Alexandra said she deserved a little freedom, since her maid knew how she truly felt. Then the maid noticed how red Alexandra's face was, which surprised her. Alexandra looked at herself in the mirror. The maid told her that during the match earlier, her face had also turned red for a short time. She warned Alexandra that if Prince Harold ever found out why her eyes turned red, the engagement might be called off. This made Alexandra worried because she didn't want to lose him. The maid told her to be more careful and said she should have at least smiled at Prince Harold and tried to be friendly when she met him. Alexandra quickly said her maid should already know that was impossible. The maid already knew Alexandra wasn't good at talking to people, and that her social skills weren't what others expected from someone in her position. Alexandra understood this too. She knew she didn't seem friendly. She thought about all the things people said behind her back. Some said she acted like a villain from a story, while others just thought she was cold and unkind. The maid was still surprised when Harold blocked one of her lady's attacks. Alexandra said she had even used the dragon's favor for that strike. She explained that Harold was able to block it by matching the way her sword moved and changing where the hit landed. That helped spread out the force and made it easier to block. She smiled quietly, thinking that Harold didn't even realize what he had done. She also believed that no one else could be a better partner for her than Harold. He had once helped her escape from the palace by giving her a handkerchief, and that moment had meant a lot to her. At the same time, Harold was trying to decide what to do next. The world he was in had a battle mode, and if he fought right away, he knew he would lose. He felt stuck even though he had asked Alexandra for 3 years to get ready. The truth was, Harold's stats were a mess. His magic attack and magic defense were high, but the rest of his stats were low. His magic type was dark, but all of his skills used light magic, which didn't fit well. His physical strength was also weak. The only good thing was that he had the maximum number of skill points. Even though Harold had a lot of potential, the real challenge was figuring out how Tachibana Haru would train him. So Harold decided that the first thing he needed to do was find a weapon. Soon after, a maid entered the room and said she would be taking care of him from now on. She introduced herself as Marion CLR. She looked at Harold with an annoyed face. Harold was surprised. The maid standing in front of him was actually another heroine from the game. In the story, she was supposed to work for someone named Wilfred. She bowed and told Harold he could ask her for anything he needed. Feeling nervous, Harold thanked her. As she walked away, she quietly whispered that she was unlucky, then closed the door behind her. Harold started thinking about himself. Maybe he was just proud on the outside but quick to give in to stronger people. He was known as the incompetent prince. Being treated this way wasn't very easy, but it helped him stay out of the spotlight. He could avoid attention and live a quiet life with his fiancée, which was what he really wanted. He also thought that in 3 years this maid might end up working for Marion. He just hoped he wouldn't disappoint himself by then. There was also something the game never showed: Harold's past. As a child, he was always compared to his successful older brothers. Unlike them, he couldn't use the royal family's special crest, and he wasn't as skilled either. Still, he worked hard to try and catch up so he could earn his parents' approval. But his mother told him that if he couldn't even act as a stand-in for the first prince, then he should at least avoid holding him back. Those words stayed in Harold's heart and hurt him deeply. A week later, Harold woke up and asked his maid for a wash basin so he could clean his face. But Marion didn't respond. He realized it had already been a week since she started working at his place, yet she still didn't do her job properly. He felt like she was being disrespectful. After that, he went to the training area to practice. While training, he thought about how long he had been working hard, but he still wasn't getting better. He remembered that in the game, people could level up. But this world was different. To level up here, a person had to train their body a lot. Still, Harold wasn't making progress. He wondered if using a magic weapon would help. He knew that some rare weapons had special skills. In the game, weapons ranked R or higher had unique powers. Some of them even had magic. He thought that if he trained with one of those, he might learn how to use magic. But before that, he wanted to make his body stronger. That would be useful during emergencies. So he decided to keep swinging his sword more. Then Marion showed up and laughed a little. She teased him, saying he hadn't improved much. Harold just said he was copying someone with no real talent. After hearing that, Marion said she would help him train because she believed he had talent. Harold thought about how even a weak heroine like Alexandra had strong powers. Since Marion came from a family of knights, she was probably strong too. He figured that if he trained with someone like her, he might also become stronger. Then he asked if she was okay with teaching him, and she said it wasn't a problem. They both got ready and Harold attacked first. She told him his guard was weak and hit him, sending him flying backward. She looked at him with a serious face and said he really was the incompetent villainous prince. She added that everyone had already given up on him. She asked if it felt bad to be looked down on by a maid. Inside, Harold agreed that he was weak and had no special skills. But because of that, he didn't want to give up. He remembered how he quit too easily in his past life and didn't want to make the same mistake again. With new determination, he got up and tried to attack again. Suddenly, another maid stepped in and stopped her, holding a dagger to her neck. The new maid introduced herself as Monica Ashton. She said she was Harold's new personal maid starting that day. When Harold saw her, he was shocked because he knew Monica was supposed to be working for Alexandra. Marion was surprised and said she hadn't heard anything about this. Monica told her to check with the head maid. She also wished Marion good luck with her next job. Marion left, telling them to wait. Monica then said that when Harold married her lady, she would follow as her maid. That's why she sent her ahead to get used to Harold while there was still time. Then Monica held out her hand and said she would take care of him. Harold took her hand. A little later, Marion came back, angrily asking why this was happening to her. Monica calmly told her that she had reported Marion's rude behavior toward Harold. Because of that, Marion was no longer needed around Harold. Marion left angrily, saying she would never forget this. Harold felt confused. Monica then said they should go back to his room so she could treat his wounds. After she helped him, Harold felt happy because she was the first maid who treated him kindly. He didn't really want to call Monica, but he did anyway. However, she was too busy looking around the room for something. She explained that since Harold was at that age, she thought he might have some hidden items that teenagers usually keep. When she couldn't find anything, she assumed he had hidden them somewhere else. Harold told her clearly that there was no other place to hide anything. Then she offered to get those things for him if he didn't have them yet. This made Harold angry, and he told her not to do anything unnecessary. Still, he said he would count on her from now on. Monica seemed to understand and asked him to count on her too. The next day, Harold was eating when Monica came in. She told him that his brother Cardus wanted him to join dinner that night. Harold felt annoyed. Before he remembered his past life, he always tried to get his mother's approval, and that meant pretending to be close to Cardus. He thought Cardus might have known that Harold was just pretending to like him. But now, Harold figured it wouldn't be a big deal, so he told Monica to let them know he would come to dinner. Later, at the training grounds, Harold was practicing hard like he usually did. It had been a while, but he didn't feel like he was getting any stronger. On top of that, he had already made a promise to Alexandra. When he opened his eyes, he saw Alexandra already standing there watching him. She told him she was thankful for his effort. Harold was surprised, and he turned red as he asked why she had come. Alexandra reminded him that it had already been a month since they last saw each other. She said that because they were engaged, they needed to meet and talk more often. If they didn't, people might start talking behind their backs. So instead of waiting for him, she came to visit. Harold realized he hadn't thought about any of that. Alexandra firmly told him to be more thoughtful next time. Even though Harold had promised to become someone worthy of her, he couldn't believe he had forgotten the most important person, Alexandra herself. He knew he had to take the first step, even if it made him nervous. Then he suddenly remembered that the Chevalier territory was far from the capital. But Alexandra explained that since their engagement, she had moved into a townhouse closer to where he lived. This surprised Harold. She also said that if he wanted, she could come visit him anytime. Harold was caught off guard. He didn't expect her to do so much for him. He started to wonder if maybe she had feelings for him, even just a little. But then he told himself not to get the wrong idea. After all, this was only the second time they had met. Next, Alexandra pointed out that he was only practicing sword swings. Harold quickly said it was because of the weather. He couldn't bring himself to tell her the real reason, that he was training so hard to get her approval. He wished he could say that out loud, but he felt like no matter how hard he tried, no one ever noticed him, back then or now. Then Alexandra brought up something from a month ago which confused Harold. She said she knew he was working hard to keep the promise they made. After hearing that, Harold finally told the truth. He said he had no special talent, but he was trying his best because of the promise he made to her. He added that he still needed to work harder if he wanted to stay as her fiancé. This made Alexandra feel sad, so she asked if she could help Harold with his training. Harold was surprised but said that it was something he could only dream of. He explained that he was doing all this hard work for her in the first place. Alexandra then asked if he thought she wasn't good enough. Harold quickly said that wasn't true and held her shoulders. He told her that he was training for himself, so he couldn't let her teach him. He also said he would feel bad for taking up her time. Alexandra laughed and reminded him that she was his fiancée, so he didn't need to worry about that. Harold blushed and thanked her. She was blushing too. Then she stood up and said it was time to start training. Harold was shocked. She picked up a sword and told him that since he had blocked one of her attacks before, he should be strong enough to do it again. She told him to get ready while he stood there, still confused. She told him again to prepare himself. After some time, Alexandra said she would come back the next day because it was getting late. Harold stayed where he was, shaking and unsure of what had just happened. Alexandra said they only had 3 years left, so they couldn't afford to waste a single day. Harold wondered if she was really sure about that. He had 3 tough years ahead, but if he didn't become stronger in that time, his future as Harold would be just as hopeless as it was in the game. Alexandra told Monica to take care of Harold. Monica said she would clean his wounds and help him rest so he could feel better by the next day. She planned to do it in a close and personal way, but Alexandra told her not to go that far. Then Monica told Alexandra to leave quickly because Harold was invited to dinner, and if he didn't hurry, he would be late. When Alexandra heard this, she felt annoyed because no one told her about the dinner. Monica teased her and said that Alexandra wasn't invited anyway. Alexandra said she wanted to go since she was still there, but Monica said no right away. Before Alexandra left, she called out to Harold and told him to let her know what happened at the dinner when she got back. Harold agreed. After she left, Harold quickly got ready. When he finally arrived at the dinner, he said sorry for being late, but someone told him they had been waiting for him. That person was his brother, Cardis Well de Hauval, the first prince of the kingdom. Because of his skills, Cardis was already involved in national politics and was the top candidate to become the next king. However, he acted cold and showed no kindness or emotion. With the powerful crest of de Hauvals, he stood in the way of the protagonist. He only saw Harold as a useless little brother. Even so, Harold continued to follow him, hoping that one day Cardis would notice him. Harold believed that if that happened, their mother would finally look at him. But deep down, he knew it was only a dream. One day, Harold nervously asked why his brother suddenly wanted to have dinner with him after such a long time. Cardis said it was to celebrate Harold's engagement to the daughter of the Chevalier ducal family. Harold thought his brother just wanted to use this as a way to gain support from the Chevaliers. It was true that the Chevaliers were the most powerful noble family. With their help, Cardis could easily take the throne. But this time, Harold had no plans to please his brother. Then, Cardis's maid whispered something to him. He looked annoyed and told someone outside to come in. A handsome young man entered with a smile and congratulated Harold. It was Raphael Well de Hauvals, the second prince. Even though he looked friendly, he was clever and strategic. He didn't want to become king, but he disliked the first queen because she treated his mother, the second queen, badly. Because of this, he also opposed Cardis, who was the first queen's son. Since Harold was seen as useless, Raphael didn't seem to have anything against him. Cardis didn't believe Raphael came just to give congratulations. Raphael jokingly asked what secret plan he could possibly have. He pointed out that Harold was marrying the daughter of the powerful Chevalier family, and said he wanted to find a partner too. But Cardis called him out, saying he had already heard from the king and queen that Raphael had once proposed marriage to the Chevalier family, but was rejected. Harold was surprised to hear this. Raphael admitted it was true and said that if he had known things would turn out like this, he would have tried harder. He then jokingly asked if Cardis also wanted to marry the same girl and offered to give her up if Cardis was serious. Cardis said he could do that. Hearing them talk about their fiancés like they were just tools made Harold upset. He stood up. The other two asked what was wrong. Harold said he didn't feel well and politely excused himself. He apologized for the trouble they went through to prepare the dinner. After leaving the dining room, Harold realized that even the things he once thought were just common sense had changed after he got his memories back. He knew this kind of thing was normal in this world. Still, he didn't want to be the kind of person who used women as tools just to succeed, even if that went against what people believed in this world. In the game, Harold had hurt Alexandra, his favorite heroine, just to be accepted by his mother and brother. He didn't want that to happen again. He decided to fight against his fate, not just to survive, but to make sure Alexandra would never have to look sad again. Before he could leave, someone called him Big Brother. It was the fourth prince, Wilfred Well de Hauvals. He was the main character of Engage Hazard. He had no special power, so people called him the one forsaken by God. Others called him the Tainted Prince because his mother was the king's mistress. In the past, Harold had used Wilfred's background as an excuse to treat him badly. But even so, Wilfred stayed kind and respectful. He had come over after hearing about Harold's engagement and congratulated him. Harold, unsure, asked if he was really okay with it. Wilfred smiled and gave him a proper congratulations. Harold found it hard to believe. He wondered if there was some kind of reconciliation route like in the game. Then he noticed someone standing behind Wilfred. It was Marion. She had become Wilfred's maid, just like in the game. Now, Harold understood why she had been so angry before. People treated Wilfred, the tainted prince, even worse than they treated Harold, the so-called incompetent villainous prince. But despite her situation, Marion looked happy. She was clearly behaving differently from how Harold acted in similar moments. He wondered if this was just how heroines naturally acted around the protagonist. Wilfred also thanked Harold for Marion. Since Harold had fired her, she had become Wilfred's personal maid. Wilfred said he was grateful. Marion also thanked Harold, saying she was happy to serve her true master. Harold could only accept it. It seemed like he had no chance of truly getting along with the protagonist. Soon after, Harold looked completely worn out. Alexandra had already heard what happened. She couldn't believe that someone like the tainted prince, along with a maid from a fallen noble family, had treated her Harold so badly. She even thought about using the power of the Chevalier family to deal with them. But Harold told her not to. Alexandra then said that Harold needed to become stronger to help prove their engagement was serious. But after all his training, Harold still looked weak. If this were just a game, he could have easily improved by spending money. Alexandra started to worry and thought there had to be a better way to help him grow stronger. She figured that finding the right weapon for him should be their first step. In the game, Harold's main weapon was a spear. But now, Harold wanted to use a shield instead. Alexandra was surprised. For the past month, Harold had been thinking deeply about his choice of weapon. A shield was usually used by characters with low defense who focused on magic. It actually fit someone like Harold really well. But the real reason Harold chose the shield was because he once managed to block one of Alexandra's attacks. That moment stuck with him, especially because she praised him for it. That praise meant a lot, and it helped him decide. Alexandra said the shield was a great choice. She believed that one day, Harold would be known as a strong and unshakable defender. She held his hands and promised to help him become stronger. After that touching moment, she told him it was time to begin his shield training. Harold nervously asked her to go easy on him. After some time, a tired Harold thanked Alexandra for the training. Alexandra saw that he had improved a lot over the past 3 months. She said that an ordinary person wouldn't have been able to land a single hit on him. Harold had gone through tough training every single day. Even so, he still wasn't able to block more than 20% of her attacks. Alexandra told him to be more confident. Even though it was only 20%, no one else could block her sword at all. In fact, in her whole family, only Monica was able to do that. Still, she was worried because Harold kept training and wasn't paying enough attention to his studies. Harold told her not to worry. He couldn't mention it, but as a former college student, he believed he could still learn well. Alexandra understood and told him that training was over for the day. She excused herself and walked away. Later that afternoon, while they were having tea, Harold asked his beloved to help him find a shield that was perfect for him. He said he wanted the jet black shield Kasparig. Alexandra and Monica were surprised. Alexandra explained that the shield could only be found by defeating the demonic beast Kasparig, a monster that lived on Morn Island. People said not even 1,000 soldiers could beat it. Monica then told Harold to think again. She said it wasn't just about getting the shield, he might lose his life trying. But Harold still insisted that the jet black shield Kasparig was the only one for him. He couldn't imagine using any other shield. It was the only high-level shield that worked for someone like him who had the dark attribute. The only way to get the shield was to defeat the mid-boss, Kasparig. The shield had a special skill called Snatch. This skill would let one attack from far away using dark magic claws. It also had a chance to cause instant death and could grab dropped items from a distance. Harold knew he couldn't do it alone. That's why he was asking them for something so difficult. He said it was okay if they said no. Alexandra said she was just worried about him. They stared at each other for a moment before she finally gave in. She understood what he wanted, but she told him not to try anything too dangerous and to listen to their orders during battles. Feeling excited, Harold said he understood. The three of them reached Morn Island. But before they could start exploring, a small black cat appeared and warned them not to enter its boss's territory. Harold thought the small cat might be the creature they were looking for. Alexandra said a Kasparig was supposed to be big like a lion. Monica agreed and said a cute kitten couldn't be it. The black cat warned them again, saying its boss was very strong and scary. Harold picked up the cat and asked if it was really a Kasparig. The cat said yes. Harold then asked why it didn't look like a huge lion-like beast. The Kasparig got angry and asked what they even knew about it. It said Kasparigs were strong and cool. Harold asked if it knew anything about the jet black shield Kasparig. The cat said it would help them, but only if they did something for it first. Harold asked what it wanted. The Kasparig said someone had entered its territory and needed to be stopped. Harold quickly said no. The Kasparig asked if he really wanted the shield. Harold replied that he wanted many things. He remembered that Kasparīgs were now known as legends and were once dangerous creatures. But since this one was asking for help from humans, it must have been dealing with something it couldn't handle alone. Still, Harold didn't want to risk the safety of the people he cared about. So he decided he couldn't just help a magic beast no matter what it needed. But the girls still wanted to help the Kasparīg. They wanted to find out which villain had caused the trouble and promised they could handle it. Harold reminded them to turn back if things got too dangerous. The Kasparīg didn't mind and let them go on. Soon, the group came across a strange and terrifying monster. It had the color of beauty and looked as white as snow, but the rest of it was awful to look at. Its eyes were sewn shut and it looked like a giant, disgusting pig. This creature was once a holy beast and a messenger of the gods. Now it had become a powerful monster known as the gluttonous beast Henwin, a raid boss. Monaco quickly said they should run away, but before anyone could move, the Kasparīg charged at the monster, shouting that it would get revenge for its mother. Even though it was blind, the Henwin managed to hit the Kasparīg and slam it to the ground. Harold didn't know what to do. If they left the Kasparīg behind, he wouldn't get his shield. Without it, his whole plan to survive would fall apart. But he still had one last idea, one that didn't need the shield. He could have given up earlier and just followed the story that was already planned for the character Harold, but now he didn't want that. He stepped forward and shouted at the monster, telling it to get its dirty foot off the Kasparīg. At that moment, the angry monster was attacked by Alexandra and Monica. It let out a loud cry of pain. Alexandra praised Harold for being brave, but also said he was still too reckless. She joked about what to do with someone like him, being so kind and awkward. Even so, she admitted she liked that part of him. Alexandra and Harold looked at each other and blushed, as if they were in their own little world. Monica couldn't believe she had to keep working under someone like Alexandra. Harold then told the Kasparīg that they would beat the pig monster together. The Kasparīg snapped out of it and joined Harold in the fight. The monster Henwin had strong attacks, but to Harold, who trained every day against Alexandra's fast moves, they felt slow. All he needed to do was block them well enough so the others could land their hits. The girls teased the monster for being slow, which somehow made it even angrier. It charged at them and they ended up falling to the ground. Luckily, Harold stepped in to block the attack, but it knocked him back hard. Monica said she would distract the monster. Alexandra ran to Harold, worried, and asked if he was okay. Harold said he was fine, but admitted this was his limit with the gear he had. Even though he could block the hits, he couldn't stay on his feet after taking them. He hoped he could at least use the jet black shield Kasparīg. Just then, the Kasparīg spoke to him in a sad voice and called him human. Harold told it that his name was Harold. He then asked where the jet black shield Kasparīg was. He said he could beat the pig monster if he had that shield. The Kasparīg looked unsure, but Harold pushed it to answer. Finally, the Kasparīg agreed, but it asked him not to betray it, no matter what kind of shield appeared. Suddenly, the Kasparīg was covered in fog and changed into a shield. Harold was surprised, but then he saw that the shield was about the size of a smartphone. The Kasparīg said this was the best it could do. It explained that, unlike its mother, it was still a child and didn't have much mana. Now Harold understood why the Kasparīg didn't want to show its shield form right away. But Harold was more confused about what mana meant. In the game he knew there were only HP, SP, attack, and defense stats, along with physical and magical power. There was no such thing as mana. The Kasparīg was shocked that he didn't know, since humans were supposed to use mana too. Harold told it that he didn't have mana or anything like that. At that moment, Alexandra got his attention. She started to explain that mana was something every living creature had. She said it was different for each person and was needed to use blessings or gifts. She was sure that Harold had heard of it before. Harold finally understood. In this world, SP was called mana, and skills were known as blessings. He gave a small smile and asked the Kasparīg if mana could be shared with others. The Kasparīg said it could receive mana from people. However, it explained that it needed the same power level as its mother to make the jet black shield Kasparīg. It required a huge amount of mana, and if it took that much from Harold, he could run out and collapse. Harold joked and asked if the Kasparīg was getting worried about him. Then he told it to take as much mana as it needed. The Kasparīg tried to warn him again, but Harold just told it to hurry up. So, the Kasparīg wrapped itself around Harold's left hand and said not to blame it if something bad happened. Meanwhile, Monica was in trouble. A pig monster had her cornered. Alexandra rushed in to help and started fighting back. She told herself that she had to stay strong. Right before the pig monster could charge at the girls, Harold stepped in and shouted that it shouldn't touch anyone he cared about. He blocked the attack and asked if the girls were okay. He said he would stop the monster's attacks and told them to use that chance to finish it. The girls replied that they would handle it. Harold was amazed as he watched the monster struggle in front of him. In the game, every weapon except for shields added its attack power to the player's stats. Shields worked differently. They added defense instead. If the person using the item had the same attribute, the effect became twice as strong. Because of this, the jet black shield Kaspareg that Harold held now had a defense as strong as a top-level SSS heroine. That's why Harold was able to block the monster Henwin's attack with ease. Alexandra and Monica saw a chance to fight back. They rushed in to attack the Henwin, but the pig-like monster suddenly stood up and let out a loud squeal. Harold quickly realized what it was about to do. He told the girls to get behind him. The Henwin sucked in a huge amount of air and unleashed a breath attack. Harold stood in front of the girls and blocked it. He stayed strong, saying he would protect them. The girls were surprised as Harold held his ground. When the attack ended, Harold pointed out that he had managed to take the full hit without falling back. Alexandra smiled and told him he did a good job. She said they would handle things from there. But deep inside, she was angry. Her eyes turned red as she shouted at the pig-like monster for hurting someone she cared about. Harold was shocked to see how her eyes had changed. Alexandra said she would teach the monster a lesson. In just a moment, she blasted a hole through the side of the monster's body. Even with such a serious injury, the monster was still alive. Then Harold spoke to the Kaspareg and said it was time to get revenge for its mother. The Kaspareg asked how. Harold told it that it should already know, now that it could feel the power inside itself. Right after Harold said that, the Kaspareg attacked using a skill called Snatch. It was a special power that only the jet black shield Kaspareg could use. It took everything from its enemy, even their life. The Henwin monster fell to the ground, dead. After the battle, Harold helped bury the Kaspareg's mother. The Kaspareg leaned against the tombstone and said it had finally done it. Harold and the girls were happy, but Harold reminded the Kaspareg about its promise. The Kaspareg pretended not to remember, but Harold pointed out how weak it was now, with only a little mana left. He asked what it would do if another dangerous creature showed up. Harold knew the Kaspareg was feeling nervous, so he made his next move. He let out a big sigh and said he had finally found the perfect partner. The Kaspareg looked surprised and asked if he meant it. It said it didn't have any mana, but Harold explained that he could help with that since he had a lot of mana to share. Harold also said he couldn't use any other weapon besides the Kaspareg. He believed their meeting was meant to happen so they could grow stronger together. The Kaspareg blushed and jokingly said Harold would be useless without it. Then it agreed to help and called Harold its partner. On their way home, Alexandra couldn't stop giggling. She asked Monica if she saw how amazing Harold looked. Monica said she did, but she also asked why Alexandra didn't just finish off the monster right away. Alexandra replied that Monica could have done it too. But Monica pointed out that there was no wild look in Alexandra's eyes this time, and it was all because Harold stopped her final attack. Alexandra felt excited watching the person she loved grow stronger, especially since he had beaten a monster more powerful than him. Monica agreed. She remembered that when a strong monster like the Henwin appeared, it usually meant the royal army had to step in. But somehow, Harold managed to defeat it on his own. Now Monica understood why her lady cared about him so much. Still, Alexandra felt annoyed that Harold was now working with the Kaspareg. Monica remembered how Alexandra used to seem fond of the Kaspareg at first. But now, Alexandra was upset that they called each other partners. Even though Harold already had her, she held a handkerchief tightly and thought about how it had been 7 years since Harold saved her. The kingdom of Dehovals had been founded by a dragon, and even after many years the dragon still cared for it. At that time, the Dehovals family ruled the kingdom, and the dragon family that supported them was the Chevalier family. Since the kingdom was very old, only a few people still remembered how it all began. Monica believed that the only dragon left in the Chevalier family was her lady, Alexandra. A long time ago, Harold had given Alexandra a handkerchief with a dragon on it, and she had accepted it. To Monica, it looked like Harold wanted the dragon's power, and because Alexandra accepted the gift, it seemed like they were meant to become a couple. But the problem was that only Alexandra believed that. Monica was sure that the prince didn't know what it meant and probably didn't even remember giving her the handkerchief. Still, Alexandra didn't mind. It had taken her 6 years to get to where she was, but now she could finally stay close and protect the prince. The Chevalier family believed that strength is justice. They had a special sword called the Divine Dragon Slaying Sword Balmung, which was given only to the one who stood at the top. Because of this, neither the current head of the family, her father, nor her older brother Cedric, who was next in line, had any say in who held the sword. Monica believed her lady worked hard to become strong enough to protect the prince and stand by his side. Monica also knew that was why she was placed next to the prince to guard him. Alexandra trusted her with that job, and Monica told her to leave it to her. Monica was ready to give her life if needed. She wanted to protect everything, not just her lady, but also the one who once called her precious, the prince. Later on, Kaspareg was seen enjoying some fresh fish. Harold reminded him not to eat too much. After the battle, the two decided to give each other nicknames since they were now partners. They started calling each other CAs and Hal, but there was one problem. Harold's future wife was angry. She couldn't believe that CAs had beaten her, the fiancé, to something. She sulked about it, so Harold began calling her Xandra instead. No matter how many times he recalled it, Harold found her jealousy a little cute. At that moment, Harold's meal was suddenly interrupted. Monica arrived and brought some news. Later at the training grounds, Alexandra found out that Harold had been invited to a party by the Marshall family. As usual, Harold was lying on the ground, completely exhausted. The Marshall family was a noble house started by the younger brother of the previous king, after he had given up his royal title. Alexandra said it would be rude to say no to an invitation from someone who used to be royalty. Frederica, the oldest daughter of the Marshall family, was one of the main female characters in the game. She was also engaged to Cardis. Harold didn't want to go because he knew Cardis would be there. Then, Alexandra shared that she had also received the same invitation. She thought the family wanted to meet them together since they might become in-laws in the future. Harold wondered if that was true. Still, he agreed that it made sense to get along with people who might become family someday. He also thought it was normal for others to be curious about them. He asked Alexandra what she planned to do. She said it would be best if they both went to the party. She also wanted to see what kind of person Frederica was. Harold was starting to understand things now. Harold thought Alexandra was subtly asking him to take her to the event, like a date. He noticed that she was waiting for his response. So he decided to take the chance and shyly asked if they could go together. But he spoke so softly it sounded like he was mumbling. He couldn't believe he had asked her in such a strange way. Still, just as he hoped, Alexandra said yes. Later, Harold rode a carriage to pick up Alexandra. When he saw her, he was so amazed by how she looked that he couldn't speak. Alexandra thanked him for coming to get her. Harold told her she looked very cute, which surprised her a bit. They both sat in silence, blushing inside the carriage. To break the silence, Harold nervously gave her a small gift box. He said it was something to remember the night. Alexandra asked if she could open it right away, and Harold said yes. Inside was a pretty hair ornament with a gem. Harold said he chose it because the colors reminded him of her eyes. Alexandra put it on her hair and asked if it looked good. Harold said it did. She thanked him and looked out the window with a smile. Harold wasn't sure if she really liked the gift, but he was happy that Monica had helped him buy it. He still couldn't believe that someone like Alexandra had accepted him, the one everyone called the incompetent villainous prince. He wondered if it was just because they were engaged, but even that didn't fully explain it. He felt like he had already received so much from her. Deep down, he wanted to ask why she accepted him, but he didn't have the courage to say it out loud. Alexandra told Harold that they had finally arrived. Harold offered his hand, and Alexandra thanked him. They walked into the mansion together. Just as they expected from the Marshall family, there were many guests at the party. Soon after, they noticed some guests looking confused. They were surprised to see Wilfred and Marion at the party too. Harold wondered why Wilfred was there. Alexandra asked if something was wrong. Harold told her not to talk to Wilfred and said that if he said anything, they should just ignore it. He also told her not to react. Alexandra replied that she understood. Suddenly, music started playing and someone announced the arrival of Cardis and Frederica. When the two entered, Frederica smiled and greeted the guests. Harold thought she looked very beautiful, just like one of the heroines in the game. Alexandra then asked if Harold liked girls with large chests like Frederica. Harold quickly said that wasn't true. Then Frederica walked up to them and thanked them for coming to the party. Harold said they should be the ones thanking her for the invitation. When he tried to introduce Alexandra, Frederica cut him off and greeted Alexandra in a cold tone. Alexandra thanked Frederica for inviting them. Frederica gave her a sharp look and said she heard that Alexandra got engaged. Alexandra said it was thanks to everyone that she was able to get engaged to a great person. But she couldn't ignore how rude Frederica had been to Harold earlier, and it felt like Frederica might be mean to her too. Frederica got nervous and quickly walked away to greet other guests. Harold thanked Alexandra, though she didn't really understand why. Just then, Wilfred and Marion walked up to them. Harold asked what Wilfred wanted. Wilfred said he just saw them and came to say hello. Harold told him to leave if he didn't have anything important to say, but Wilfred asked him to wait and wondered if Harold was curious about why he was invited to the party. Harold said he wasn't, then walked away with Alexandra. He told his younger brother to enjoy the party without him. Wilfred and Marion just stood there, watching them leave with unhappy looks. Later, out on the balcony, Alexandra asked Harold if she could take a break to freshen up. Harold said yes. He thought that ever since Wilfred showed up, Alexandra's mood had changed. He remembered that she was someone whose feelings were hard to read. He started to wonder if she might fall for Wilfred, just like in the game. Suddenly, Cardis walked up to Harold. Harold was shocked to see Cardis of all people catching him there. Cardis asked if he was having a good time, and Harold said he was. Then Harold asked if Cardis knew that Wilfred had also been invited to the party. Cardis smiled and asked if Harold was surprised. Cardis explained that the king had told him to bring Wilfred into his group. Harold didn't expect that. Cardis went on to say that the king was worried about Wilfred's situation because he didn't have a proper place in the palace. The king couldn't help Wilfred directly because of the first queen. So the king chose Cardis to protect Wilfred and make sure no one could hurt him easily. Cardis said the party was also meant to show that Wilfred was now under his care. He then mentioned how Harold usually accepted invitations from the Marshall family right away, but this time he took longer to respond. Cardis believed Harold already knew what was going on. Before leaving, Cardis told Harold that he should start looking after their little brother from now on. Harold was left speechless. Soon after, Alexandra came back and asked if something had happened. Harold explained everything to her. Alexandra wondered what the first prince had been thinking. Harold didn't know either, but he believed that Cardis already understood the risks of bringing Wilfred into his group. For some reason, Harold could imagine Cardis actually enjoying the situation. He guessed that his oldest brother had made a deal with the king and accepted Wilfred as part of it. Alexandra then asked how Harold planned to act around Wilfred from now on. Harold said he wouldn't do anything. Whatever his brothers chose to do was not his concern. He didn't want anything from them, now or ever. Still, Harold knew deep down that his feelings were just jealousy. It made sense that Alexandra cared about the main character. He felt bad for her. She wanted to help, but there was only one thing he could do. Alexandra giggled. Harold looked confused and asked if something was going on between her and Wilfred. Since he asked, Alexandra explained that Wilfred was the person she hated the most in the world. She said that even if she hurt him again and again, it still wouldn't make her feel better. She even called him an absolute scum. When Harold saw the angry look on her face, it reminded him of something from the game. That same expression was supposed to be for him, after the main character had turned against him. But now, Alexandra was looking at Wilfred that way instead. Alexandra then asked Harold if he remembered what happened 7 years ago. He didn't understand what she meant. She took his hands and told him that on that day, it was Harold who saved her. Her thoughts, her heart, her pride, and even her spirit. She asked him to listen as she shared a story from that day 7 years ago.